Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Justice for Comics. It is Monday morning. Thought I would do a quick video to highlight what's been going on in the comic book industry in general regarding sales, recorded sales to comic book shops, just kind of some data crunching this great website, Comichron, does this every month. It's a good way of keeping tabs of the industry trends, things like that, publishers that are doing well or maybe not doing so well. So it gives you a little insight of what's going on with the comic book industry, how healthy it is, that kind of thing. So I figured I'd jump into this. There's in the May, the total numbers for May haven't been released yet by Comichron. So they've got the order of the best-selling book, top 10, top 20. They do have that data, but they don't have like the number of sales per title. So I think that'll be released here in the next week or so. So I want to kind of just jump into a few things that are interesting. So they even have it broken down, sales data for particular weeks. So for the week of May 27th through June 2nd, Naomi number 5. Not real surprising there that would be the number one or top reordered book. There's a lot going on with Naomi. It's very popular. A lot of people know about this issue being the first time she's using her powers. So I'm not surprised that that book's on the list. I'm a little surprised Angel number 2 was on the list. Boom Comics. It's not. I wouldn't normally think that would be a book that would be near the top for a particular week. But yeah, I guess there's a lot more Angel fans out there than I'm aware of. So for May, the top 5 selling books, Deceased number 1. I'm not surprised by that. DC did a lot to promote it. There's a lot of store websites that did variant covers to kind of promote it. It is a great story. I really, really enjoyed the first issue. So I think word of mouth also probably helped. If somebody gives a really good review of a particular book, it'll cause some people to pick it up that maybe normally wouldn't pick it up. There's people out there that don't collect a lot of DC books, that might collect more Marvel or Independence, that I think probably gave that a read and boost the numbers quite a bit. Number 2, Doomsday Clock. Not surprised by that. Although I don't think in previous issues that it has scored as well, mainly because of late release. I think Doomsday Clock was supposed to be scheduled coming out every 2 months, and I think several issues ago they were a month or two late, which it was obviously would hurt their sales a little bit. But the story's great, and it's nice to see it near the top of the list. Number 3 on the list is Batman Last Night on Earth. You've got a pretty big creative team. A lot of people follow Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, so I'm not surprised that is high up on the list. Although with that combination of those two, you think that they would be number 1 or 2, but I haven't read the book yet. I just got it in the mail. I plan on reading it this coming week, so maybe I'll do a review on that book. I've heard some things that were good about it, some things that weren't. So I'll try to do a review of that. Snyder, his writing sometimes is tedious, so we'll see how that goes. But the early reviews on it were that it was okay. It was mediocre. Number 4 on the list is Savage Avengers number 1. This is the first Marvel book to hit the top 5. Notice they only have 1. And you got Wolverine, Conan, Venom, Punisher. You're putting some of your best characters on one book. They promoted it pretty well. I would expect it to be in the top 5. Number 5 on the list is Batman Who Laughs, which I gotta say, the first couple issues were really good, and then it's kind of waned a little bit. I'm not, I don't look forward to that book. I know there's only one more issue, number 7, coming out. But I'm just, I don't know. I just didn't think, I expected it to be a little bit better, I guess, is what I'm saying. So this is also interesting. May of this year versus May of last year. Comic books are down 4% year over year. So does that mean, comic books aren't selling as well? I wouldn't say that. Last year you did have Amazing Spider-Man 800 released in May. That obviously would be a big boost. Marvel doesn't have anything close to that big, right? I mean, Savage Avengers is nowhere near the sales figure that an Amazing 800 would be. So that obviously skews the number quite a bit. So I don't think a 4% decline versus last May is all that big of a deal. Going a little further down the list, graphic novel sales, I think, were about flat. This is interesting here. The month's total wouldn't be an all-time record, though. At the peak of the early 1990s comics boom, Marvel shipped 126 new comics to retailers in August of 93, of which 123 issues made Diamond's top 300. That appears to be the all-time record for it and any other American publisher. So Marvel, this past month in May, did 118. Not quite up to the 126, but getting pretty close. I mean, those numbers are pretty big. I mean, quite a big amount since '93. So is the comic book industry suffering? I don't know. I think Marvel seems to be doing better the last year or two, from my casual observation of the comic book industry. I would say DC's not doing as well. I mean, they've got a couple good books out there, but I don't know. DC seems like they're sliding down the scale right now. Marvel seems to be doing much better, especially if you look at like a year ago, month to month. I think DC in the top 10, DC owned that top 10. I mean, 7, 8, 9 out of the top 10. Marvel had 1 or 2. Marvel, I would say now, is at least 5 or 6 out of the top 10. I mean, I think they're doing very well versus a year ago. So, that's kind of what happens when you find a good writer like Donny Cates and you give him a big contract. You expand his writing agenda, and instead of him writing 1 book, now he writes 3 titles. Colin Bunn, I think, has been doing a lot of Marvel stuff lately. So, you put in some good writers and some decent artists, and what do you know? Your sales are going to increase. Dark Horse had a little jump here from a year ago. I think Umbrella Academy, obviously, that's mentioned, is that's obviously helped them. That not only in graphic novel sales, but Hotel Oblivion, their new series, seems to be selling fairly well. Dark Horse has always been almost an afterthought. So it's kind of nice to see them getting a little love and people starting to pay a little bit more attention to the titles that they're releasing. So they got the May 2019 versus April, so you can kind of see the changeover in month. Versus May 2019 versus May 2018. Comics, dollar-wise, are down 7.81%. Graphic novels up 5%. In total, comics and graphic novels down 4%. Again, I think a lot of that's skewed because of the Amazing Spider-Man came out last May, and that increased the numbers quite a bit, especially from Marvel. Toys are about flat. Interesting. Comics year to date, 2019 versus 2018. A little bit better, right? 2018 comic sales were down 5%, and they're only down marginally 0.5%, basically. Graphic novels not down near as much. And overall, comics and graphic novels down 0.66 versus down being 5.18, so that seems to be healthier. Notice toys are down from 30 to 23%. A lot of that's got to be due to, well, I don't know. I wouldn't. These are comic book orders, so sometimes shops just don't get as many toys or statues and things like that in a given period of time. A lot of that just happens to be the release of certain items, statues, for instance. So that number, it's probably nothing to really pay attention to. In toys in general, it's interesting. There hasn't been a standalone toy store yet, like a Toys R Us, right? Toys R Us went bankrupt. So in general, you would think that toy sales would be down. It'd be interesting to find out those industry numbers to see if toy sales are down dramatically because of there being no Toys R Us. Although, there's a lot of people now that buy toys online, Amazon, for instance, where, that seems to be replacing a lot of the toy buying. Also, Walmart, obviously probably sells quite a bit of toys. So, the gap's probably being filled by online and Walmart, I would think, with the disappearance of Toys R Us. Market share, publisher, Marvel has a pretty healthy lead. Notice the lead and unit share isn't very much, but a little bit more dramatic with dollar share. So, Marvel tends to price a lot of their books higher at times, especially with certain events. They'll have a much higher margin on their books. So, 40 versus 28, but unit share is about 1% difference, but quite a bit different as far as dollar share. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Image distant third, right? 6.88. Dark Horse, in the fourth position. IDW, Boom, and then just a bunch of other ones. Dynamite's pretty low there. And you get your top selling comics by units. Deceased #1 from May, definitely the #1. They don't have the numbers yet, but I think that'll come here in the next week or two. So I just thought there was some interesting things to highlight. You can also see, how many comics were shipped by the publishers in the month of May. Marvel 118, DC 60. So almost twice as many books as DC. And then everyone else is, basically way below 50. Which I thought was interesting. Yeah, so it's kind of cool to have a lot of these numbers. I mean, it just gives you an idea of, what's doing well. They show April here, how the April sales are doing. Notice Immortal Hulk was outselling Batman. That probably was one of the reasons, not the only reason, but probably one of the reasons DC decided to make a change to who's writing Batman. Immortal Hulk, it's a great book, obviously, but I don't think Hulk has ever been a top-selling book. It just never has been. And it's kind of neat when you have a great cover artist, a good interior artist, and a really great writer on a book. For a character that, it's cool that they explored the depth of Hulk a little bit more, kind of brought him back to his roots. And it's amazing that if you had said a year ago that Immortal Hulk or a Hulk title would be beating Batman in sales, I would say you're crazy. But here we are, right? It's doing it. So pretty interesting. It's pretty neat. They also show the top-selling comic books of the 21st century. You got Star Wars #1. When they launched that, that came out in what was that? 2015 or 16. Over a million sales. Detective Comics 1000, currently at 572,000 in sales, number 2 on the list. Relaunch of Amazing Spider-Man number 1 at 559. Secret Wars number 1 at 550, and Amazing Spider-Man at 530 with the Obama cover. Interesting. DC only has one title on there. So again, Marvel dominates all-time sales, or at least in the 21st century. Yeah, so that's kind of what I wanted to highlight. I might do another video doing a rundown of the sales, the actual sales numbers that came out from May. Just if there's if there's anything interesting there to talk about, I might do a video, but I may not. I know some of these videos are a little boring. Not everyone really cares about how the industry is doing, but I would say overall it's doing pretty healthy. Seems like it's doing better here lately. You've got a lot of good titles coming out, a lot of good independent titles. Also with that report, it seems like Image is not doing as well. Their titles have been dropping. They're not doing as well in sales, near as well in sales. In fact, I think the report said that they're the lowest sales figure since 2013 for Image, so they're struggling a little bit. All right, guys, that's all I had on this report. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel, hit the bell for notifications, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think, and I will see you on Wednesday.